Welcome to Kickin' with the Rickens, redefining retirement. Gerry Ricken and Heidi Ricken Provost want to help you retire with purpose and live with joy. Find more information, including how to reach the team, in today's show notes. Now, Kickin' with the Rickens, powered by Ricken Financial.
Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for downloading. Thanks for listening to Kickin' with the Rickens podcast. My name is Mark Owens. We invite you to get more at rickenfinancial.com. You can get all the information here in the show notes. Thanks again for subscribing. Now, let's get to the show. We are here with licensed insurance professional Gerry Ricken, or should I say Snowman. Gerry, how you doing this weekend, buddy?
You know, doing great, Mark. It has been a little snowy in St. Louis, and as it has around the country. It always fascinates me when I go out, and I went to Schnucks last night on my way home because we needed some half and half for Sheila's creamer for her coffee in the morning because I drink mine black. But we were running low, so I stopped by Schnucks, and the first thing I did when I walked in is I walked through the bread section, you know, the bakery, and the shelves were still empty. I thought, oh my gosh, what happens every time we get a snow event? There's a run on bread and milk, and I was thankful that I did find some half and half, but I went to the milk section too, and it was all almost empty. So people just either go crazy or they don't plan, or something happens in that event. And I think it's all about planning, you know. And when I think about that, it just fascinates me, though. The bread and milk flies off the shelf.
In the Owens household, it's wine and beef jerky. So we are pretty well taken care of around here.
Oh, you know, I like that concept. I really, truly like that concept.
Well, so, you know, we do full disclosure here on Kickin' with the Rickens, obviously representing all of St. Louis. I am just north of Atlanta, but we had that same cold front last weekend that came through. And, I mean, just blasted us. I mean, we had ice storms come in. We had, you know, wind chills in the negatives and in the teens. And it's, you know, we don't handle cold weather. It's a running joke for a good reason that even a light dusting of snow will shut down Atlanta for a couple of days, which it does because it doesn't happen very often. But it was almost, I don't want to say comical, the lack of preparation that people had for this, because everybody's running out at the like we've known the storm is coming for a week.
Well, they've been talking about it for a week before it happened, at least a week before it happened.
Yeah.
And people just don't really realize, or they just panic. You know, they just panic, and they panic buy, because I just don't understand. What do you do with all this bread and milk? What do you do with it? So,
we've got enough red wine in the Owens household right now that anybody that's got a birthday in the next 2 months is getting a bottle of wine, because I'm
coming down.
But I think that's a good place to get started here this weekend on Kickin' with the Rickens. Rickenfinancial.com or 314-207-6211. And a lot of people did overreact, but you've got to hope for the best but prepare for the worst. So I think there's something, Gerry, about creating, and for what you do, the preparation, the emergency funds, the what-if buckets, if you will, that you tell families you serve on a daily basis.
That's so true, Mark, because when I drove around St. Louis, you know, on Monday after the storm, the roads were clear. You know, the roads were clear because the county, the city, the state had a plan. They had an emergency contingency plan on how to clear the streets and how to make people safe. And it's all about making people safe and making people prepared. And there's no better time to prepare than today. And that's for emergencies, for your retirement, for anything that's forecast in the future, or even not forecast in the future. And when we talk about preparation, first thing we want to talk about is an emergency fund, because the state, the city, the county, they all set aside funds for emergencies. We should all learn from that. We should all do that as individuals. If you're still working, we would like to have you set up an emergency fund. What's an emergency fund? An emergency fund is simply a set account that says, hey, in the event something happens to me health-wise, if I lose my job, if I'm still working, if I can't pay my bills, I can reach into this fund and pay my expenses. It's a very, very simple concept, but it's a concept that most people don't really utilize, or they underestimate the importance of it. We've seen that too many times in our business, where people say, oh my gosh, this just happened. What can I do? And we say, okay, well, the emergency fund that we had set up, we spent that. So if you spend it, replenish it. And how much should you have in it? That's kind of a $64 question a lot of people ask us. If you are currently working. We would like for you to have 6 months of expenses. And when I say expenses, what are your true expenses on a monthly basis? A lot of people forget about, transportation, gasoline. A lot of people forget about food. They say, well, here's my electric bill, here's my, gas bill, all those things. But what else? What do you spend? What do you spend to live? So a lot of people don't really understand, or they truly don't know how much they spend. The best way to figure out how much you spend, look at your take-home pay if you're working, and out of your take-home pay, how much is saved permanently in an account that you do not touch, that you will not touch. I'm not talking about an account that you're going to set aside and then pay taxes later in the year, and not those kind of accounts. What do you permanently save for the future that you're not going to touch? If the answer is, well, I don't have an account like that, I don't fund an account like that, then what you take in on a monthly basis is what you spend on a monthly basis. And as humans, we tend to do that. If money comes into the account, it typically goes out of the account. So we want you to pay yourselves first. How do you pay yourself first? A lot of people will say, well, if it's all in the same bank and I can transfer it very quickly, I'll have a tendency to just transfer that emergency fund over if I'm running short that month or what have you. And that's okay, but as long as you replenish that emergency fund. Some people will ask us, what would you do if you had that urge to always use those funds? Well, we would find an online bank that pays a high yield savings account, or a credit union, or something that's more difficult to get to than your normal banking app, and put the money over there so that it's an extra step on moving the money or using that money if you need to. That way it's a set it and forget it. And we typically don't say set it and forget it except for emergency funds.
Right.
We want you to have those emergency funds out there and just set them up. And once you get it funded, then you can do some other things. The other thing that people say is, well, I have an emergency fund, but I have all this credit card debt. Okay, one of the things we want you to do is get out of credit card debt, pay your credit cards on a monthly basis. Don't let the credit card companies charge you 24, 25, 27%, because you're just throwing money down the drain. If you've got an emergency fund and you got credit card debt, think about this. If your emergency fund is making 3%, 4%, and you're paying 27%, you're running negative by 20-some% every month. Don't do that. Pay off your credit cards, then set up an emergency fund. We don't want to enrich the credit card companies or the banks behind the credit card companies, but we would rather enrich your pocketbook and keep that money in the family. But setting up an emergency fund is very, very important, not only in your working years, but in your retirement years as well. Because some people say, well, I don't really know that I need one. Well, what if something does happen? You have a catastrophic health incident in your retirement years. What do you need to do if you need to go into a long-term care facility and you've set up and you've done the planning and you have 3 months before your insurance kicks in on long-term care? Well, how are you going to pay for those first 3 months? Well, we want you to pay for those first 3 months with your contingency fund, your emergency fund. That'd be the best place to do it, because if you just think about that, if you have to sell IRA money or 401k money, you have to sell those assets, guess what that causes? That causes taxation. That takes money out of your family's pocket and into the IRS's pocket. Why not have something set up that's tax efficient and can handle those needs on the occasion that you need them? And hopefully none of us will ever need it. We all know that life happens.
Yep.
And when life happens, we need to be prepared for those happenings. So if you'd like to have that conversation, just call us at 314-207-6211 or hit us up at rickenfinancial.com, and we can start that conversation about what your emergency fund really truly should look like.
Gerry, my grandmother kind of subscribed to the theory as we're talking about emergency funds. She would keep Ziploc bags of cash in the house just in case. Now, obviously, she's from a completely different generation. But what's your take on, as we talk emergency funds, having emergency cash on hand?
My concept of cash has changed dramatically since 2020 when COVID hit. Now, you can't go any place. People won't take cash. A lot of places are cashless. We're in a cashless society. So having cash isn't really the best way to save for an emergency, because cash can be lost, cash can be stolen, cash can be burned up in a fire. It can vanish in various different ways. If you have it in a financial institution. It's insured and it's easily accessible. So I would prefer that you make money on that cash and not just leave it in a Ziploc bag. And God bless your grandmother. She grew up at a different time when cash was truly king.
Yep.
Now it's a point and click society. You can't even go to Busch Stadium and buy a beer or a hot dog with cash. It has to be credit.
Oh, yeah.
So we're in an electronic world right now. So use the best form of electronic funds by putting the emergency funds in some place that's liquid and that is actually paying you something.
My daughter will never know what it's like to work cash. She pays for everything using her little Apple Watch.
We are in a different world, my friend.
100%.
We are truly in a different world, and it's a point-and-click society.
It's the purpose approach from the team at Ricken Financial. Retire with purpose, live with joy. Gerry Ricken, what exactly does that mean?
What that means, Mark, is that the purpose approach is something we coined as our approach to everyone coming through our door when they want to think about retirement. And when you think about retirement, when you think about your working years, what is your purpose in your working years? You go to work, whether you own a business or you work for someone else. You're going to work, you're contributing to society, you're contributing to your company, you're making a contribution, and that should feed your soul on a daily basis. And if it doesn't, you probably need to come and talk to us about a different career path or retiring earlier. But hopefully it does feed your soul, because what we spend so much time on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, on an annual basis at work. We want that to be a joyful time. We want you to be able to contribute and have a purpose. And that purpose is whatever your role is in your organization, that's your purpose while you're working. When you retire, that completely changes. When I say it completely changes, a lot of people underestimate how much it changes their life. Because if they were living with joy during their working years, we want you to live with joy during your retirement years, because you've worked too hard to not experience joy in your retirement. And when I say experience joy, I mean have something that fulfills your needs, wants, and desires as a person. What feeds your soul? What are you going to do as an individual when you retire? You know, some people say, well, I'm gonna work on my honey-do list. Well, what are you going to do in 3 months when that honey-do list is finished? You know, that may feed your soul for a few months. Are you going to then do a hobby and start making something out of woodworking? Or, I mean, what is it?
You hear that often. People are like, finally get retired. Do you find that some adults are like, Gerry, I've been retired for about 6 months. It's a little more boring than I was prepared for. Like, do you have to help them find that next chapter?
We have had to do that on occasion. Some people are very busy when they retire because they have had things in their lives to do besides work. They've got a family, they got grandkids, they spend time with the grandkids. They have had different charitable organizations that they've volunteered for in the past. So they're continuing to do that. Maybe they're even stepping up that volunteer game. They've had hobbies. They've had interests outside of work. Maybe they're a golfer. Maybe they're a fisherman. Maybe they're an outdoors person. Maybe they play pickleball. Maybe they play tennis. Maybe they play, bocce ball like I do down on the hill. So it's whatever feeds their soul outside of work may feed their soul, and there may be nothing else to do. You may just say, okay, great, you've got it all figured out. But it's the people who don't have those things in their lives that we worry about.
Yeah.
And we should worry about it, and they should worry about it, because if you've done work and work and work and work and work and nothing else, you need to find something else before you stop that work. Because yes, 6 months in, you may become a couch potato, and we don't want you to just waste away on the couch. We want you to just enjoy it. And some people say, I'm going to do nothing in retirement. And those are the people that we worry about the most, because depression can set in. All kinds of things can happen to a person when you're not active, when your brain isn't active, when your body isn't active. You can get sedentary in your ways, and that isn't who you probably were when you were working. You were more active. So, we encourage a lot of people to do different things, and we try to figure out with people what those things are. One of my favorite things that we've done is an individual came in and they were an engineer, and for fun at night, they read engineering periodicals. That was
For fun?
For fun.
Good on you.
So this individual was an engineer, worked as an engineer during the daytime, and when he came home at night, he read engineering periodicals. Didn't even watch television, wasn't really interested in anything else, but he was just so into his career that's where he engulfed his time. So they came in, he was getting ready to retire, and she looked at us, and I said, what are you going to do when you retire? And he said, well, I don't know. And she said, thank you for asking that, because I've been worried about that, because I don't know what he's going to do. So we knew that he had grandchildren. And I said, have you ever read to your grandchildren? Yes. And I said, what do you, I read books to my grandkids whenever I can, but his grandkids were out of town. So he didn't get to do that often. So we said, okay, what if you love to read? Yes, I love to read. I'm a voracious reader, but he read, periodicals and engineering books and everything about, science and industry and I said, what if we could find you an organization where you could read to children? He said, I'd love that. So 3 days a week, now he reads to the kids at a local school near his house. We arranged that for him, and he loves it. He absolutely loves it. And he loves actually what he's doing now. He's doing science projects with these kids, and he's become a volunteer teacher, if you will, so that he's exploring himself in a different fashion. Yep. And he's using that talent that he's had his entire life and re-energizing that in teaching kids what science and industry is all about. So that's a lot of fun. So what we want to do is have you find your niche. People say, you need to find your niche in life. Well, what's your niche in life when you retire? It's probably going to be something different than while you're working. What is it that you do that makes it fun for you to do that on a daily basis? And if it is volunteering, we have lots of organizations we can introduce you to that are always thirsty for volunteers in all different facets of society and what their missions are. You name the cause, we probably know about it because our clients are involved in those causes and they're passionate about it. And being passionate about something is what you probably need to focus on in retirement. What are you going to be passionate about in retirement? Because you were passionate about that while you were working. So then what we say is, okay, after we figure all that out, and that takes a little while. For some people it doesn't. It takes about 2 minutes because they say, here's what I do, blah, 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 blah. And, they're busier in retirement than they ever were while they were working. Right. And we find that to be the people who are most joyful and have the most fun is those people who are busy all the time. But we want to build plans around that. We want to build plans around your purpose. What is your purpose in retirement? And how can we help you in building income plans to make sure that you have enough income to feed your soul, to feed those things that feed your soul? And if travel is something, maybe we need to develop an additional travel plan for you. What kind of travel? Is it international travel? Do you want to see all the parks in the United States? Are you going to have a camper? Are you going to be a person who goes down south to either Florida or Arizona during the wintertime and be a snowbird? What is going to happen with you and what do you want to do? We want to make sure that you have the wherewithal to do those things in retirement that you want to do. And not only income planning, but when we talk about income planning, let me just expand a little bit about that. If you can have guaranteed income for life, that's the best kind of income you can possibly have. And what kind of guaranteed income is available out there? Well, most of us, if we've had a job where we paid into the Social Security Administration, will have Social Security benefits when we retire, when we turn those on. You can turn those on as early as 62 and as late as age 70. But actually, at age 70, they aren't automatically paid to you. You have to actually turn those benefits on and say, yes, I'd like to start receiving those at age 70. So don't get caught in that trap because Social Security will not pay you unless you ask them to pay you.
Right.
But when is the best time in that 8-year period from 62 to 70 to claim your benefits? Well, that's different for every person that we meet. And it's also different if you're an individual or if you're a married couple, because when you are a married couple, when one of you leaves this earth, the benefit that goes away is the lowest benefit. So we encourage you to take a look at who had the highest earning years, because Social Security is based on the 35 highest earning years of your life. Who had the highest benefit? Well, let's make that highest benefit the greatest benefit we can have. Maybe we wait until age 70 to turn that benefit on because the surviving spouse will receive that benefit. So why not make it the most amount of guaranteed income you can have for the rest of both of your lives?
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of things we look at. We also look at pensions. Is it a good pension? Is it solid financially? What are your benefits there? What are your options? There are lots of different options. There are a lump sum plus an income stream at 50% survivorship, an income stream at 100% survivorship, an income stream with no survivorship. If you pick one of those, we want to make sure that your spouse is taken care of with life insurance to replace that lost income if you go that route. There are all different kinds of ways to plan for that, but the most important thing you can do is actually plan for it.
And to start building that plan, we invite you to call the team at Ricken Financial, 314-207-6211 or online at rickenfinancial.com. And let's talk a little bit about diversification, Gerry Ricken, because when we talk about being diversified, we don't mean like having a good red wine with steak or a good white wine with fish. We're talking about the diversification of assets in your portfolio. Where does that begin?
Well, I wouldn't mind talking about those other items, but this is all
that's
about
a whole nother podcast.
Retirement planning. But that's a different pod. Yeah, we'll put that on a podcast after hours, baby. So when we talk about diversification, a lot of people come to us and they are still in their accumulation years. Accumulation years means that they started early on in their career. They started saving in a 401k, in IRAs, in an investment account, and they're building assets and building wealth and building wealth and building wealth. Those are your accumulation years. And when you think about diversification, most people come in and say, well, I'm very diversified because I'm in a 60-40 portfolio, which means 60% stocks, 40% bonds, or a 70-30, 70% stocks, 30% bonds. When we talk about retirement planning, diversification comes to a completely different definition. When you're in your accumulation years, you want to build the nest egg. You want to take more risks. When the market goes up and down, you can withstand those risks if you're a younger person. So when you think about diversification, you say, yes, I'm diversified because I'm in stocks and bonds. When we talk about retirement planning, diversification takes on a whole different meaning. And what does that really mean? Well, we sit with you and we ask you a lot of questions about your risk tolerance. And we develop a risk tolerance platform. And it says, okay, my risk tolerance is maybe it's 60-40 or it's 40-60. I'm on the precipice of retirement and I don't want to be whipsawed by market fluctuations. When you are in your accumulation years and you're in stocks and bonds, it used to be there was an inverse relationship between stocks and bonds. When stocks went up, bonds went down. When stocks went down, bonds went up. In 2007-8, during the credit crisis, that correlation was broken. All things went down. Stocks and bonds went down. We lost principal in both at the same time. And that was unprecedented, but that occurred, and that can continue to occur. One of the things you don't want that to occur in is during your retirement years, when you're no longer building that nest egg, but now you are living on that nest egg. You are in your decumulation years, your preservation years, your decumulation years, where you need to make sure that you have enough income and enough assets to support your income needs for the rest of your life. We don't want you to ever run out of income. And a lot of income is generated from your assets. Mm-hmm. If your assets go down, your income could potentially go down. So when we talk about diversification in your retirement years, we're talking about those items that can lose principal and those items that can never lose principal. So when we talk about the 60-40, the 40-60, 60% in the 60-40 is exposed to principal loss. 40% is not exposed to principal loss. So we need to change the way we think about investing when we're thinking about retirement, because one of the things you don't want is saying, okay, I'm going to be status quo, and status quo, all of a sudden we have an event. We have a market event where the market goes down. Stocks and bonds both go down, and you've lost principal across both those sectors. One of the things we want to do is make sure that you feel comfortable when we have market volatility, that you can withstand some market volatility with confidence. And when I say with confidence, what that really means is that you are investing the way you want to invest. Mm-hmm. In your heart of hearts, how do you want to invest? I'm 62, 65, 67 years old. I'm getting ready to retire. How should I be investing? If the market goes down and stocks and bonds both go down, do I want to go down? What percentage can I handle? What percentage do I have bifurcated, set aside, that says I can't lose principal here, so maybe I can take a little bit more risk on this side where I am investing in the market? So we just want to have a long conversation with you to understand what really makes you tick from a market volatility perspective. How much risk can you stand? How much risk can you withstand? And we want to make sure, if you're a married couple, that both of you are on the same page. When we meet with people, oftentimes the husband and the wife are on different pages when it comes to risk. So we spend a lot of time on that because we want what's best for the two of you. We want what's best for your family. What do you both collectively think? And what is a good compromise? If you are completely diabolically on both sides of the equation, we never see that. We usually see they're pretty close, but they're a little bit far apart.
Right.
We want to make sure what is the common ground that makes both of you feel comfortable in the event something occurs, that you know exactly what's going to happen to your portfolio within reason, so that you're comfortable. And it's all about comfort, because when you're in your retirement years, you want to be able to sleep at night and not worry about what's happening in the market. If the market goes down, you didn't lose any money in this part of your portfolio. You may have over here, but we've balanced it enough so that overall you're going to be just fine in retirement, and you're going to be retiring with confidence because you are investing the way your risk tolerance wants you to invest.
All right, so we talked about being diversified in your portfolio. We talked about being aware of your risk, but now, Gerry, what about your taxes? How do you help us mitigate taxes in retirement?
You know, on January 4th of 2025 last year, July 4th, what am I talking about? July 4th of last year, the 4th of July, that's when it was signed. That tax bill changed a lot of things, and it provided a lot of opportunities. A lot of people think that the tax law is designed to have you pay more taxes. Actually, the tax law is designed to help you pay less taxes, but you have to know how to use the tax law. And knowing how to use the tax law, you need to really can't do this by yourself. I mean, you have to have your thumb on the pulse every day of the year, because tax law changes every day. And I built my entire career based on tax law and trying to figure out what is the best strategy that we could apply to save people in taxation going forward. And there's no better place to save taxes than in your retirement years. Why pay more than you need to pay when you're not bringing income in? You know, a lot of people say, oh my gosh, I'm paying so much in tax. And the people who say that are typically people who haven't withheld enough during the year, and all of a sudden they're surprised on April 15th when they have to cut a check. But tax planning isn't just about what happens on April 15th. Tax planning is what happens on January 1st going forward for the rest of the year, and sitting down with someone who knows what you can do in the tax law to help reduce your taxation. And there are a multitude of things that we can do, we can expose you to, that will help you on a daily basis, and while you're working and after you're retired. But there's no better time to plan than today. Planning today for your taxes will only help you in planning for what's going to happen in the future. And we talked about diversification in your portfolio. Diversification in your tax portfolio is equally as important as diversification in your investment portfolio. When I say tax diversification, people look at me like they've never heard that term before. We use that term a lot because we want you to understand what you can do in your qualified accounts, your IRAs, your 401ks, those accounts. What about your investment accounts, things you've already paid taxes on? How can we provide an income stream that's tax-free even on those in the future? There are all different kinds of elements that we can introduce you to and expose you to that you may not have otherwise known about had you not sought the expertise of people who understand taxation. There's no better time to plan for that than today, because today is the beginning of what will happen in your retirement, regardless of where you are. We believe that we can get you tax-free in retirement within different parameters. Some people we cannot because they have a huge pension and we can't work around that. But we believe we can get most people tax-free in their retirement years eventually. You're going to be paying your fair share along the way, but we'll show you how to pay it, when to pay it, and how much to pay to get you there.
Gerry, there is something that I think we as adults, we kind of put it on the back burner. Thinking about your health care, thinking about your long-term care, you need to start having a plan sooner than later.
My dad always said, if you don't have your health, you don't have expletive. So it's
fill in the blank there.
I fill in the blank on that one. But it's true. If you don't have your health, you don't have a whole lot. I mean, you need your health to function in life and to be a functioning member of society and be there with your kids, with your family, with your grandkids, with your spouse, and have with your friends and just and enjoy life. And enjoying life, it really is based on your health, because so many people unfortunately don't have that opportunity to enjoy life like a healthy person. So when we talk about health, we want to talk about health care. And health care really starts with, if you're retiring early, and that's before age 65, we want to make sure that you are covered for your health care needs. Some people say, well, I would really like to get out before age 65. Well, if you get out before age 65, healthcare in the United States is actually a broken system. I mean, the whole way we pay for healthcare has changed dramatically. A lot of the subsidies have gone away from the Affordable Care Act, and it's become more and more expensive, more difficult. But navigating through that by yourself can be very, very difficult. We can help you with that. The other thing we can help with is saying, okay, what if you do want to retire at 63 and a half? 63 and a half is a very, very key age when you talk about retirement. Why is that? Well, if you're working for an employer and you have a group benefit healthcare plan, there's something called COBRA. And that's an acronym that basically says it's a continuation of benefits after you leave that employer that you can effect for 18 months. You'll be paying the full price of that. But a lot of people come to us and say, you know what? I love my healthcare provider. I love the plan that I'm on, but I would like to retire at age 63 and a half. Then they just apply for COBRA. And they pay that COBRA for the next 18 months. COBRA is available for an 18-month period after you leave your employer. Well, guess what happens 18 months after 63 and a half? You reach the magical age of 65. At 65, that is the only qualification we have to apply for Medicare. And Medicare is a government-sponsored healthcare plan that you have Part A and Part B in Medicare that you apply for through the Social Security website. So Social Security and Medicare are two separate entities, but everything is performed through the Social Security website. So you can apply for Medicare at that point and then determine what else you need to supplement that. Is it a supplement plan? Is it an Advantage plan? And do you need, dental and eye care, vision, all those types of things? We can walk you through that. That can be very, very confusing. So many of my friends who turn 65 say, oh my gosh, I am so inundated with all kinds of mail, phone calls, text messages, emails about the fact that I turned 65 and everyone wants to talk to me about Medicare. And it's confusing because I get these pamphlets. I read them. There's A, B, C, D, G, all kinds of different plans out there. And I don't know what they all mean. What we try to do is just break down in very simple terms what your options are and lead you to making an informed decision, because it's everything in life is based on information. And if you don't have the information, you're not going to be able to make an informed decision. We want you to make informed decisions all the way through your retirement lives, whether you're coming to us as way before retirement or you're well into retirement. We want you to have the information to be able to make informed decisions, because informed decisions are intelligent decisions. And if you make a decision you're not happy with, we can change that decision. We can go and pivot. So all planning needs to be flexible. And when we get you into a retirement plan, and it includes Medicare, that can be changed on an annual basis during the open enrollment period. So there are lots of different options that you have when we talk about healthcare and getting health insurance in retirement. Don't be afraid of the ABCs of Medicare. It's a very simple process, and we can lead you to that. If you're not interested in COBRA and you want to retire early, we can also introduce you to what is available in the open market with respect to healthcare insurance and see if that works for you or not. Don't be intimidated, because it can be very intimidating when you look at healthcare in retirement, but it doesn't have to be. It simply doesn't have to be.
And now let's talk about the importance, as it all comes together, Gerry, about building your legacy. Where does that begin?
When we talk about legacy, a lot of people think that's all about the assets. How are you going to structure those assets to leave those behind? It's really more than that. Yes, it includes that. But what it also includes is, who are you as a person? I'm always fascinated to know where I came from. And I'm blessed because I do have a lot of lineage that, I've lots of cousins that live in Germany. In fact, I was there for one of their 50th wedding anniversaries in November. Even beyond that, I know where I came from on that side of the family, but I also know where I came from on the other side of the family, because the stories were told. We understand, we have documentation that's there. So a lot of us have undocumented photos. And when I say undocumented photos, there are pictures of people that may look like us, but we have no idea who they are. And it's even harder now that we went into this electronic age, because I can pick up my cell phone right now and scroll through hundreds of pictures. And if somebody else took that and didn't know who those people were, they had no idea what those events were, what anything was. So documenting for your loved ones and telling the stories to your kids, your grandkids, your great-grandkids, so that they understand what struggles you went through, or maybe what opportunities you had, that they know where they come from. They know what their heritage is. They know what legacy you're leaving behind as a person, and teaching them maybe some things that you learned early on. Maybe you learned a skill, passing that skill on. Maybe it's some craft you have. Maybe it's being able to play a musical instrument. Maybe it's something that no one in your family even knows you did.
Right.
And passing that on. And, I look back at the miniseries Roots years ago, talking about how one family traced themselves back to the tribe in Africa and Kunta Kinte, and how he chopped off his foot to escape slavery. I mean, all those things. That's a fascinating story for me. But every one of you out there listening has a fascinating story you can pass on. Or your parents are still alive, your grandparents are still alive, have those conversations. Then take a look at what your assets do look like. One of the things we don't want is, we don't want the courts to be in charge of how your assets are passed on, who they're passed on to, and what percentages go to what people. We want you to be in charge of that. We want you to be fully in charge of that. And we can guide you through that. We can guide you through estate planning. Do you need a trust? Do you need a will? Do you need powers of attorney for healthcare and powers of attorney for finances? Yes, yes, and yes. So we definitely need to have that conversation and help you plan that part of your life as well. Because if you don't, the courts will be in charge of what happens and when it happens.
Nope. We know how good the government runs so many programs right now. Do you really want them having a say-so in your legacy?
We want you to be in charge of everything. And that's what planning is all about. Whether that is your income plan, your health insurance plan, your investment plan, your tax plan. But most importantly, when you leave this earth, do you want to be in charge?
That's right.
We think you do.
Leaving a legacy, not just for you, but your family as well. To have a deep, boring conversation with Gerry Ricken, Heidi Ricken Provost, and the team at Ricken Financial, we invite you to reach out this weekend. 314-207-6211. We have a representative standing by right now. Well, Gerry Ricken, thank you. Thank you for the education and the information this weekend. We're back next weekend, but before we get out of here, Gerry Ricken, take us home.
Every day is a holiday. Life is short. Laugh hard.
This has been Kickin' with the Rickens, redefining retirement.
Insurance products are offered through the insurance business Ricken Financial LLC. Ricken Financial LLC is also an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through Impact Partnership Wealth LLC, a registered investment advisor. IPW does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by Ricken Financial LLC are not subject to investment advisor requirements. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. Ricken Financial LLC is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during the show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Ricken Financial LLC.
Please remember that converting an employer plan account to a Roth IRA is a taxable event. Increased taxable income from the Roth IRA conversion may have several consequences. Be sure to consult with a qualified tax advisor before making any decisions regarding your IRA.
Tax preparation and tax advisory services are offered through Ricken Financial. These services are not offered by IPW and are not subject to investment advisor requirements. These services referenced are an outside business activity not offered through or supervised by IPW.